The rope cut into her wrists until they bled, but Clara Brennan refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of the crowd that had already decided she was a murderer. Marshal Thornton's voice echoed across the frozen square. "Any man who wants a wife, step forward and claim her." No one moved. Then two small voices pierced the silence. "Papa, that's her. That's the song lady from the snow." And Samuel Hartwell's whole world shifted on its axis. Stay with me until the end of this story, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale has traveled. The winter of 1878 had been cruel to Silver Creek, Wyoming territory, but nothing crueler than what was happening in the town square that December morning. Clara Brennan felt the rough hemp rope biting deeper into her wrists with every small movement. Her fingers had gone numb an hour ago. Maybe two. She'd stopped counting when the crowd started gathering, when the whispers became shouts, when the first clod of frozen dirt struck her shoulder. She didn't flinch. Wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "Murderer," someone spat from the crowd. Clara kept her chin high. Let them see her eyes. Let them see she wasn't broken yet. 3 women stood tied to posts in the center of Silver Creek Square. Old Martha Perkins accused of stealing bread, young Bessie Coleman caught in the wrong man's bed, and Clara Brennan, widow of Edward Brennan, accused of bashing her husband's skull in with a fireplace poker. Clara was the only one not crying. "Cold-hearted," she heard a woman mutter. "Look at her, not even sorry." Sorry, Clara wanted to laugh. Sorry for what? For surviving, for still breathing. When Edward Brennan finally stopped, Marshal Wade Thornton climbed onto the makeshift platform near the posts, his boots thudding against the frozen wood. His badge caught the weak winter sun, flashing like a warning. "Attention! Good people of Silver Creek!" The crowd pressed closer. Clara could smell them, sweat and whiskey and self-righteousness. "Now I know what you're all thinking." Thornton continued, his voice smooth as snake oil. "These women committed crimes against decent folks. They deserve punishment." "Hang 'em!" someone shouted. Thornton held up his hands, that smile Clara had learned to hate spreading across his face. Now, that seems wasteful. Don't you think 3 able-bodied women could be useful to someone?" Clara's stomach turned. She knew what was coming. He'd told her 3 nights ago in that cold jail cell. Told her exactly what he planned. "Any man here who needs a wife," Thornton announced, "can claim one today, right here, right now. No courting, no waiting, no asking permission. You take responsibility for her, keep her in line, and she's yours." The crowd erupted. Some laughed, some cheered. A few looked away in shame, but not enough. Never enough. "What about the murderess?" a man called out. "Who'd want that one?" Thornton's eyes found Clara's across the square. That cold blue gaze that had haunted her nightmares for 6 months. "Mrs. Brennan here," he said, and Clara heard the possessive edge in his voice, "is a special case. Killed her own husband in cold blood. Beat his head in while he slept." "That's a lie," Clara said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Thornton's smile widened. "She says it's a lie, folks. But I found her standing over the body, blood on her hands, murder weapon right there on the floor." Clara pulled against her ropes, ignoring the fresh pain in her wrists. "You know what really happened, Thornton? You know exactly what happened." "Careful, Mrs. Brennan." His voice dropped, meant only for her. "Don't say something you'll regret." Clara held his gaze. 6 months of hell. 6 months of his visits to her cell. His demands, his threats, his hands on her face when she refused him. She'd rather hang than let him win. "So," Thornton turned back to the crowd, "who wants to take a chance on our little murderess any-takers?" Silence. Clara watched men shuffle their feet. Avoid her eyes. She was poison now. Damaged goods. Exactly what Thornton wanted. He'd told her, hadn't he? That night when she'd spat in his face instead of thanking him for saving her from her husband. Told her he'd make sure no decent man would ever want her. told her she'd beg him to take her before he was done. No one, Thornton's voice dripped false sympathy. Can't say I blame you, gentlemen. A woman who'd kill her own husband. Who knows what she'd do to... Papa, look. The small voice cut through the noise like a bell. Clara's head turned toward the sound, toward the edge of the crowd where a wagon had stopped. Two little girls stood in the wagon bed, maybe 5 years old, with golden hair and serious faces. Twins by the look of them. One clutched her father's coat sleeve, while the other pointed directly at Clara. Papa, that's her. A man climbed down from the wagon. Tall, dark-haired, with shoulders that spoke of hard work and a jaw set like granite. His eyes swept the square, taking in the posts, the ropes the circus Thornton had created. Girls, sit down, he said quietly. This ain't a place for me. Papa, no. The bolder of the twins jumped down from the wagon despite her sister's gasp. Papa, you have to listen. That's her. That's the lady from the snow. Clara felt something cold slide down her spine. The lady from the snow. She didn't know what it meant, but the way the child said it with such absolute certainty made her breath catch. The man's face went pale. Grace, what are you saying? The song Lady Papa. The second twin had climbed down too, now both girls tugging at their father's coat. She sang to us in the storm. She kept us warm. Don't you remember the green blanket? Clara's mind went white. A storm. A green blanket. 2 years ago, or was it 3? She'd been traveling, trying to outrun the blizzard that swept down from the mountains. She'd taken shelter under a tree and heard crying children crying and followed the sound to an overturned wagon. A woman's body already cold. 2 little girls, shaking blue-lipped, calling for their mama. Clara's hands trembled against the ropes. She remembered giving them her blanket. Remembered singing to keep them calm while the snow piled higher and higher. Remembered the cold seeping into her bones as she lay beside them, trying to keep them warm with her own body. After that, nothing. She'd woken up days later in a stranger's barn, half dead from exposure, with no memory of how she'd gotten there. She'd thought the children died, had dreamed about them nightmares where she reached for them and they turned to ice in her arms. But they were here, alive, pointing at her with small, certain fingers. You sure about this? The man asked his daughters, his voice rough. We're sure, Papa, the twins said together. That's her. That's the lady who saved us. Samuel Hartwell looked across the square at the woman tied to the post. She was staring at his daughters like she'd seen a ghost. Like they were impossible. Maybe they were. The doctor had said they'd imagined the woman in the snow. A hallucination, he'd called it. The mind's way of coping with trauma. But Grace and Lily had never stopped talking about her. The dark-haired lady who'd found them. Who'd wrapped them in her green blanket. Who'd sung about stars and rivers until they stopped being cold. They'd described her face 100 times, 1,000. Sam had started to believe they'd made her up, that she was just a story they told themselves to make sense of their mother's death. Now here she was. Bruised and bloodied, tied to a post like an animal, but unmistakably real. Hartwell. Thornton's voice cut through Sam's thoughts. Samuel Hartwell, as I live and breathe. Didn't expect to see you in town today. Sam straightened, keeping his hands at his sides even though they wanted to curl into fists. He knew Wade Thornton, knew what kind of man wore that badge. Just came for supplies, Sam said evenly. Well, you're in luck. Thornton gestured toward the 3 women. We're having ourselves a little auction today. Any of these ladies catch your fancy? They ain't cattle, Thornton. No. The marshal's eyebrows rose mockingly. What would you call them then, criminals, sinners, burdens on decent society? Sam felt his daughters press closer to his legs. Grace was crying silently. Lily's jaw was set in that stubborn way that reminded him painfully of Rebecca. Papa, Lily whispered urgently. You have to help her. She saved us. You can't let them hurt her. Shh, baby girl. But Papa. I said shh. Sam's mind was racing. This was madness. The woman was accused of murder. He didn't know. Her didn't know anything about her except what two 5-year-olds believed they remembered from the worst night of their lives. But those two 5-year-olds had never lied to him. Not once. And they were looking at him now with those huge blue eyes, asking him to be the father who fixed things, who made the bad stuff go away. "What's her crime?" Sam asked, nodding toward Clara. Thornton's smile flickered. "Murder. Killed her husband." "Did she have a trial?" The silence stretched. Sam watched Thornton's jaw tighten. "Trial's expensive," the marshal finally said. "Territorial judge won't be through for months. Evidence was clear enough." "Clear to who?" "To me." Thornton stepped to the edge of the platform, his voice dropping. "You questioning my judgment, Hartwell?" "Just asking questions, Marshal. Ain't that what a man's supposed to do before he makes a decision?" "Decision about what?" Sam looked at his daughters. Grace had stopped crying, but her hand was clutching his coat so tight, her knuckles were white. Lily was staring at the woman on the post with fierce, protective eyes. The woman Clara Thornton had called her was staring back at his girls. And Sam saw something in her face that made up his mind. Recognition. Wonder. And tears. Actual tears, sliding down cheeks that had stayed dry through all the insults and thrown dirt. "I'll take her," Sam heard himself say. The square went silent. Thornton laughed. "I'm sorry, what? I said I'll take her." Sam stepped forward, putting himself between his daughters and the marshal's mockery. "The Brennan woman. I'll take responsibility for her." "You can't be serious." Thornton's smile had turned brittle. "She killed her husband, Hartwell. Bashed his head in while he slept. You want that kind of woman around those precious little girls of yours?" "My girls seem to think she saved their lives once." Sam met Thornton's eyes steadily. "I reckon I trust their judgment more than yours. Your girls are children. They don't know. They know enough." The crowd was muttering now, a low buzz of shock and speculation. Sam ignored it. He'd been the subject of town gossip before, the widower who couldn't keep his wife alive, who raised his daughters alone, who kept to himself and his horses. He was used to being talked about. "Think carefully," Thornton said, and there was an edge to his voice now, a warning. "You take this woman home, you're taking responsibility for whatever she does. If she hurts those girls, it's on your head." "Understood." "If she runs, you'll be held accountable." "Won't run," Sam said. "Will she, Mrs. Brennan?" Clara's voice came out rough, like she'd forgotten how to use it. "Where would I go?" Sam almost smiled at that. Almost. "Cut her loose," he said. Thornton didn't move. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other across the frozen square. Sam could feel the weight of the crowd's attention, could feel his daughters trembling against his legs. "You're making a mistake, Hartwell," Thornton finally said. "Maybe so." Sam stepped closer to the platform. "But it's my mistake to make. Now cut her loose, or I start asking more questions about how exactly you came to be standing over Edward Brennan's body with a smoking gun in your hand." Something flickered in Thornton's eyes. Fear, maybe. Or rage. "Careful," the marshal breathed. "I'm always careful." Sam held out his hand. "The knife, if you please. I'll cut her down myself." The silence stretched until it became painful. Then Thornton laughed a cold, humorless sound and tossed a knife at Sam's feet. "Your funeral, Hartwell. Or maybe hers." Sam picked up the knife and walked to Clara's post. Up close, he could see the full extent of the damage. Bruises on her face, yellow and purple. A split lip barely healed. Rope burns on her wrists that were bleeding freely now. Someone had hurt this woman. Hurt her badly and recently. "I'm going to cut the ropes now," Sam said quietly. "Can you stand?" Clara's eyes searched his face. "Why are you doing this?" "My daughters say you saved them." I don't remember. Not all of it. There was a storm and children crying, and then—" She shook her head, wincing at the movement. "I woke up days later in a barn. I thought they'd died. I thought I'd imagined it all." "You didn't imagine it." Sam began sawing through the ropes. "They remember you. Been talking about the song lady for 2 years. I thought they'd made you up." The ropes fell away, and Clara stumbled forward. Sam caught her arm, steadying her, feeling how thin she was through the torn sleeve of her dress, how badly she was shaking. "Easy," he murmured. "I've got you." The song lady. Lily's voice rang out, and then both girls were there, wrapping their small arms around Clara's waist, nearly knocking her off her feet. "We knew you were real," Grace whispered. "We knew it. Mama's in heaven, but you're here. You came back." Clara's face crumpled. She sank to her knees in the frozen dirt, gathering the twins close, her body shaking with sobs she'd clearly been holding back for far too long. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I couldn't remember. I thought you died." "We didn't die," Lily said firmly, patting Clara's back like she was the adult comforting a child. "You saved us. The blanket kept us warm, and you sang until help came." "The green blanket," Clara whispered. "My grandmother made it." "It was so soft," Grace agreed. "But then it was gone, and you were gone, and Papa found us, and Mama was in heaven, and we looked for you everywhere." Sam watched his daughters comfort the woman he'd just claimed from a public auction. Watched the crowd begin to disperse, muttering and staring. Watched Thornton's face twist with something ugly before the marshal turned and stalked away. This was either the best decision he'd ever made or the worst. "Can you walk?" Sam asked, offering Clara his hand. She looked up at him, her dark eyes wet with tears, but burning with something else too. Gratitude, maybe. Or determination. "I can try." "Then let's go home." He helped her to her feet, shrugged off his coat and draped it over her shivering shoulders. The twins each took one of her hands, leading her toward the wagon like they'd done it 1,000 times before. "Wait," Clara said suddenly, turning back toward the other 2 posts. Old Martha was being cut down by a young farmer, but Bessie Coleman stood alone, still crying, still bound. "We can't just leave her," Clara said. Sam hesitated. One accused murderer was already more than he'd bargained for. "Please," Clara whispered. "I know what it feels like, standing there, waiting. Please." Sam looked at the sobbing young woman, then at Clara's bruised face, then at his daughters watching him with expectant eyes. "Hell," he muttered. 10 minutes later, he had 2 women in his wagon instead of 1. Bessie Coleman sobbed with relief the entire ride out of town, clutching the hand of a rancher named Tom Miller, who'd stepped forward after Sam's example, a quiet, decent man whose wife had died the previous spring. They separated at the fork in the road, Miller tipping his hat to Sam with something like gratitude in his eyes. "You started something today, Hartwell." "Didn't mean to start anything." "Don't matter what you meant." Miller glanced back at Bessie, who was still crying. "Matters what you did." Then they were gone, and Sam was alone with his daughters and a woman accused of murder. The ride to the ranch took an hour. The girls chattered the whole way, asking Clara questions faster than she could answer them. What was her favorite color? Did she like horses? Could she braid hair? Did she remember the song about stars? Clara answered as best she could, her voice growing hoarse, her body swaying with exhaustion. Halfway home, she fell silent, and Sam looked over to find her unconscious, her head resting against his shoulder. She weighed nothing, felt like a bird that might break if he held too tight. "Is she okay, Papa?" Grace whispered from the wagon bed. "Just tired, sweetheart. She's been through a lot." "The bad man hurt her," Lily said with quiet certainty. "The one with the shiny star. I could tell." Sam's jaw tightened. "How could you tell?" She looked at him the same way Mama used to look at thunder. Like she wanted to be brave, but she was really scared inside. Out of the mouths of babes, Sam thought. "She's safe now," he said firmly. "Nobody's gonna hurt her anymore." "Promise?" Sam looked down at the woman sleeping against his shoulder, at her bruised face and bleeding wrists, at the stubborn set of her jaw even in sleep. "Promise," The ranch appeared as the sun touched the western mountains, casting everything in shades of gold and pink. Sam's two-story house stood solid against the winter sky, smoke curling from the chimney where he'd banked the fire before leaving. Home. Safety. Peace. He hoped Clara Brennan would find all three. She woke as he lifted her down from the wagon, her eyes flying open with panic before settling on his face. "Where?" "Home," Sam said. "You're safe here." Clara looked around at the ranch, at the house, at the horses, watching curiously from their paddocks, at the twins already running ahead to open the front door. "Why?" she whispered, and Sam heard all the broken questions underneath. "Why did you save me? Why do you believe me? Why would anyone be kind after everything?" "Because my daughters say you saved their lives," Sam answered. "And I figure that makes you family. Come on, let's get you inside before you freeze." He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Clara took it. Her fingers were like ice through his shirt sleeve. They walked toward the house together, toward the warm light spilling from the windows, toward the sound of his daughters laughing as they argued about who got to show Clara her room first. Behind them, the sun set over Silver Creek, and somewhere in town, Marshal Wade Thornton was already planning his next move. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, Samuel Hartwell was bringing a stranger home. A stranger his daughters claimed had saved them from death in a blizzard 2 years ago. A stranger accused of murder by a man Sam trusted, about as far as he could throw him. Tonight, he was betting everything, his reputation, his safety, maybe his life, on the memory of 2 5-year-old girls and the feeling in his gut that said this woman was worth saving. He just hoped to God he was right. The house smelled like dust and cold coffee and something faintly sweet lavender, maybe dried and forgotten. Clara stood in the doorway, afraid to step further, afraid that moving would shatter whatever strange dream had brought her here. "You can come in," Sam said from behind her. "Ain't gonna bite." Clara's legs wouldn't obey. She'd spent 6 months in a cell smaller than this entryway. 6 months staring at stone walls, listening to Thornton's boots on the stairs, waiting for the rope that would end it all. And now she was here, in a stranger's home, with 2 little girls tugging at her hands like she belonged. "Come on," Lily urged. "I'll show you your room. It's got a window and everything." "Best window in the house," Grace added seriously. "You can see the mountains." Clara looked at Sam, searching his face for the catch, the trap, the moment when kindness would curdle into something else. He just nodded toward the stairs. "Go on. Girls'll get you settled. I'll bring up some water for washing." She let the twins lead her upstairs, their small hands warm in hers. The room they brought her to was simple: a bed with a faded quilt, a washstand with a chipped basin, a chair by the window. But it was clean, private, safe. The door had a lock on the inside. Clara stared at that lock for a long moment, her throat tight. "Mama put that there," Grace said quietly, following her gaze. "She said every woman needs a door she can close." "Your mama sounds like she was smart." "She was the smartest." Lily climbed onto the bed, bouncing slightly. "She died in the snow. Same night you found us. Did you see her?" The question hit Clara like a physical blow. Yes, I saw her." "Was she cold?" Clara knelt down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. "She wasn't hurting anymore. That's what I remember. She looked peaceful." Lily nodded, processing this with the terrible practicality of children who've learned too young about death. "Papa says she's watching us from heaven. Do you think she saw you save us?" "I think," Clara said carefully, "if she was watching, she was glad someone found you. She sent you." Grace spoke with absolute certainty. "Mama sent you to save us, and now you're here because we still need you." Clara opened her mouth to argue, to explain that she'd just been traveling, just stumbled across them by accident, that there was nothing divine about nearly freezing to death in a blizzard, but the words wouldn't come. Maybe it didn't matter why she'd been there. Maybe it only mattered that she had been. "I need to ask you something," Clara said quietly. "Both of you." The twins leaned in, serious and attentive. "That night in the storm, what exactly do you remember?" Grace and Lily exchanged one of those looks that twins share an entire conversation passing between them in seconds. "The wagon fell over," Grace began. "It was so cold. Mama told us to stay under the blankets, but the blankets weren't enough." "She went to sleep," Lily continued. "We tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't wake up. We were crying and crying, and then you came." "Out of the snow," Grace whispered, "like a ghost, but warm. You wrapped us up in your blanket, the green one. It smelled like flowers." "Lavender," Clara breathed. Her grandmother's blanket had always smelled like lavender. "You sang to us." Lily's voice dropped. "You said help was coming. You said we just had to hold on a little longer. And then you lay down next to us and you were shaking so bad. We tried to keep you warm too, but you were so cold." "We fell asleep," Grace said. "And when we woke up, Papa was there with other men. They were digging us out of the snow, but you were gone. We looked for you everywhere." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Papa said maybe we dreamed you, but we didn't dream you. We didn't." Clara pulled both girls into her arms, holding them tight against her chest. "You didn't dream me. I was there. I got lost in the storm. I couldn't remember what happened after I fell asleep. But you remember now. I'm starting to." Sam appeared in the doorway with a pitcher of steaming water. He paused at the sight of Clara on the floor with his daughters wrapped around her, something shifting in his expression. "Water for washing," he said gruffly, setting the pitcher on the washstand. "There's soap in the drawer. Clean clothes in the wardrobe. They were Rebecca's, my wife's. Should fit you well enough." "I can't take your wife's clothes. She'd have wanted you to have them." Sam's voice roughened. "She'd have done what you did that night in the storm. She'd have given her blanket to someone else's children. So wearing her clothes, that's fitting. That's right." He left before Clara could respond. The twins helped her wash small hands carefully, dabbing at her bruised face, while she scrubbed 6 months of prison grime from her skin. The water turned gray, then brown, then gray again as they refilled the basin. "Does it hurt?" Grace asked, touching the yellow bruise on Clara's jaw with gentle fingers. "Not anymore." "The bad man did this." Clara hesitated. These were children. They shouldn't know about men like Thornton, but they'd already lost their mother. They'd already seen more darkness than most children twice their age. Lying to them felt wrong. "Yes," Clara said simply. "The bad man did this. Papa won't let him hurt you again." Lily's voice was fierce. "Papa's strong. He fought in the war. He's not scared of anybody." Clara thought about the way Sam had faced down Thornton in the square. The steel in his voice. The way he'd planted himself between her and danger without hesitation. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe this man really wasn't scared of anything. Or maybe he was scared of the same things everyone else was losing. People being alone, watching the world take everything good and grind it to dust, and he'd just learned to stand up anyway. That kind of courage was rarer than fearlessness, and far more valuable. Dinner that night was awkward. Clara sat at the table in Rebecca's dress, her wet hair drying by the fire, while Sam served up a meal of beans and bread and some kind of meat she didn't ask about. The twins chattered enough to fill the silence, but Clara felt Sam's eyes on her throughout the meal, watching, assessing, trying to figure out what kind of woman he'd brought into his home. "You should eat more," he said finally. "You're too thin." "Prison food isn't known for its generosity." "How long were you in there?" 6 months. Sam's jaw tightened. "And before that, how long were you married to Brennan?" Clara set down her fork. 4 years. Was it bad from the start? Does it matter? I'm trying to understand who I'm dealing with. Clara met his eyes across the table. You're dealing with a woman who was beaten by her husband for 3 years, who finally fought back the night he tried to kill her, who watched the local marshal shoot him in the back and then claim she was the murderer when she refused to become his property instead. The words fell into silence. Sam's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Thornton shot your husband? Yes. And framed you for it? Yes. Why? Clara's laugh was bitter. Because I said no. Because I wouldn't let him touch me. Because I'd rather hang than spread my legs for the man who murdered my husband and called it justice. Clara. Sam's voice was sharp, and Clara realized the twins were staring at her with wide eyes. I'm sorry. She pressed her hands to her face. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have their children. I know their children, I just... Girls, go upstairs. Sam's tone left no room for argument. But Papa... Now... The twins slid off their chairs and trudged toward the stairs, casting worried glances back at Clara as they went. When they were gone, Sam leaned forward, his elbows on the table. Tell me everything. From the beginning. So Clara told him. She told him about meeting Edward Brennan in Missouri, about his charm and his promises, and the way he'd made her feel special when she was just a poor Irish girl with nothing to her name. She told him about the wedding, the move to Colorado, the slow revelation that the man she'd married wasn't the man she'd thought she'd known. She told him about the drinking, the rages, the first time Edward hit her and apologized after crying and swearing it would never happen again, the second time, the third, the 100th. She told him about losing a baby, their baby, when Edward threw her against a wall in a drunken fury. About lying in bed for days afterward, bleeding and broken while her husband drank himself into oblivion and blamed her for losing his heir. She told him about the night everything ended. Edward coming home drunk, angrier than she'd ever seen him. His hands around her throat, the fireplace poker she'd grabbed in desperation, the shot that came from the doorway, and Thornton, standing there with a smoking gun and a smile that made her blood run cold. He told me I owed him, Clara said, her voice hollow. Said he'd saved my life, and I should be grateful. When I refused to be grateful in the way he wanted, he arrested me. Told everyone I'd killed Edward in his sleep. Made sure the whole territory believed I was a monster. Sam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. He come to your cell, Thornton. Every day. Did he? He tried. Clara's hands clenched in her lap. I fought. Bit him once hard enough to draw blood. After that, he got creative with his punishments. Nothing that would show. Nothing that would leave marks people could see. Sam stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the window and stood with his back to her, his shoulders rigid. I should have killed him. In the square. Would have been easy. He was too busy talking to watch his back. And then you'd be in prison, and your daughters would be orphans. Clara rose and moved to stand beside him. You did the right thing, the smart thing. Don't second-guess it now. Sam turned to face her. In the dim light of the parlor, his gray eyes were unreadable. Why didn't you tell them in the square? Why didn't you tell everyone what he did? Would they have believed me? He didn't answer. They both knew the truth. I stopped trying to defend myself months ago. Clara continued. Nobody wanted to hear it. They'd already decided what I was. A murderess, a mad woman, a whore who killed her husband and blamed it on the marshal. I believe you. 3 words. Simple and direct and devastating. Clara felt her eyes sting. Why? Because my daughters don't lie. And because I've known Wade Thornton for 3 years, watched him bend the law to suit himself, watched him hurt people who couldn't fight back. Your story makes sense. His never did. That's not enough. I could be lying. I could be exactly what they say I am. Could be. Sam reached out and tucked a strand of damp hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle, careful, like she was something fragile. But I don't think so. Clara caught his wrist before she could stop herself. Don't. Please don't be kind to me. I can't. Can't what? I can't trust it. Her voice broke. Every time someone's been kind to me, it's turned out to be a trap. Edward was kind at first. Thornton was kind when he shot my husband. I ain't them. How do I know that? Sam didn't pull away from her grip. You don't. Not yet. But I'm going to show you. Every day I'm going to show you that some people are exactly what they seem. And you're going to learn to trust again. Might take a while. That's okay. We've got time. Clara stared at him, searching for the lie, the manipulation, the hidden agenda. She found nothing but steady gray eyes and a patience that seemed to run bone deep. You're either the best man I've ever met, she whispered, or the best liar. Guess you'll have to stick around to find out. Against all reason, against every instinct screaming at her to run, Clara smiled. Just a small thing, barely a curve of her lips, but Sam's eyes lit up like she'd given him a gift. There it is, he said softly. Been wondering if you still knew how to do that. The moment stretched between them, fragile and new. Then small footsteps thundered on the stairs, and Lily burst into the room, her face white with panic. Papa, Grace is having the dream again. They ran. Sam took the stairs 2 at a time with Clara right behind him. Grace was sitting up in bed, screaming, her eyes wide open but seeing nothing. Mama! Mama, wake up! You have to wake up! It's so cold! Mama, please! Sam reached for her, but Clara got there first, gathering the thrashing child into her arms. Grace, listen to me. Listen to my voice. Mama, it's Clara. Remember the song, lady. You're safe now, sweetheart. You're warm, and you're home, and you're safe. Grace's screams dissolved into sobs. Her small hands fisted in Clara's dress, clutching tight. She wouldn't wake up. We tried and tried, but she wouldn't wake up. And then you came, and you were shaking, and we couldn't keep you warm, and I thought you were going to sleep too, and never wake up like Mama. Shh. Shoo. Clara rocked her gently, tears streaming down her own face. I'm here. I woke up. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. Lily climbed onto the bed and pressed against Clara's side. Sam stood frozen in the doorway, watching this woman he'd known for less than a day hold his daughters like they were her own. She has these dreams sometimes, Lily whispered. About the snow. I try to wake her up, but she doesn't hear me. Does singing help? Clara asked. Both girls nodded. Clara began to sing. It was an old melody passed down from her grandmother about stars and rivers and finding your way home. Her voice was rough from disuse, cracking on the higher notes, but Grace's sobs slowly quieted, and Lily's eyes grew heavy. Sam listened from the doorway, feeling something crack open in his chest. For 2 years he'd tried everything to help his daughters through these nightmares. Warm milk, stories, prayers. Nothing had worked. But Clara's voice seemed to reach them in a way his never could. Like they remembered it from that night in the snow. Like it was coded into their very bones. Grace fell asleep first, her breathing evening out as she slumped against Clara's chest. Lily followed minutes later, curled into Clara's side like a puppy seeking warmth. Clara kept singing until she was sure they were both deeply asleep. Then she looked up at Sam with exhausted, tear-bright eyes. Help me lay them down. Together they arranged the sleeping girls in their beds, tucking blankets around small shoulders, brushing golden hair from peaceful faces. 2 years, Sam said quietly as they stood in the hallway. 2 years of nightmares. Doctors said they'd grow out of it. They never did. Trauma doesn't work like that. It stays until you face it. Is that why you're still here? Facing your trauma? Clara considered the question. I'm here because 2 little girls recognized me in a town square. I'm here because their father decided I was worth saving. Beyond that, I don't know why I'm anywhere anymore. Then stay. Sam's voice was simple, matter-of-fact. Stay until you figure it out. And what do you get out of this arrangement? My daughters sleep through the night for the first time in 2 years. Sam's eyes held hers. Seems like a pretty good deal to me. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the reasons this was madness, all the ways it could go wrong. But exhaustion was pulling at her, and the bed in that guest room was calling, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt something dangerously close to hope. One day at a time, she said finally. One day at a time. Sam walked her to her room. At the door he paused. Lock it if you need to. I won't take offense. Clara touched the lock on the inside of the door. Your wife put this here. She had a past too, before me. Took her a long time to trust that a closed door would stay closed, that nobody would bust through demanding things she didn't want to give. Did she trust eventually? Yeah. Sam's smile was sad. She did. Took 3 years, but she got there. And you waited? For 3 years. Some things are worth waiting for. He left her, then his footsteps retreating down the hallway toward his own room. Clara stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening to the house settle around her. Then she stepped inside, closed the door, and for the first time since she'd married Edward Brennan, she didn't turn the lock. The next few days passed in a strange haze. Clara slept more than she'd slept in years, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion now that safety had made it possible. She ate 3 meals a day, feeling her strength slowly return, watching the bruises fade from her face in the small mirror above the washstand. The twins were her constant shadows. They followed her everywhere, asking endless questions, demanding stories and songs, and help with their braids. They taught her the names of all the horses, showed her the secret places on the ranch where they played, introduced her to the barn cat and her new kittens. And slowly, so slowly, Clara almost didn't notice it happening, she began to feel human again. Sam kept his distance during the days, working with the horses, mending fences, doing the 1,000 small tasks that kept a ranch running. But in the evenings, after the girls were in bed, he'd sit with Clara in the parlor, and they'd talk. He told her about the war, about the things he'd seen and done, the friends he'd lost, the nightmares that still caught him sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn. She told him about growing up Irish in Boston, about her mother's death and her father's drinking, about her brother Declan, who'd practically raised her after their father fell apart. Where is he now? Sam asked one night. Your brother? I don't know. We had a fight before I married Edward. Declan saw what Edward was, tried to warn me. I didn't listen. Clara stared into the fire. I told him if he couldn't be happy for me, I didn't want him around. So he left. You ever try to find him? With what I was Edward's property. Couldn't write a letter without him reading it first. Couldn't leave the house without permission. And after... She shook her head. After everything, I assumed Declan wouldn't want to hear from me anyway. I'd made my choice. I had to live with it. Family's supposed to be there no matter what. Supposed to be. Rarely is. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then, I've got a sister in Denver. Haven't seen her in 4 years. Life just got in the way. That's different. Is it? She wrote me after Rebecca died, asked if I needed help with the girls. I said no. Too proud, too stubborn, too sure I could handle everything myself. He laughed softly. Sound familiar? Clara looked at him sideways. Are you trying to tell me something? I'm trying to tell you that people make mistakes. Push away the ones who love them. Doesn't mean those people stop loving them. Your brother might still be out there waiting to hear from you. Or he might have forgotten I exist. Only one way to find out. Before Clara could respond, hoofbeats sounded outside. Sam was on his feet immediately, hand dropping to the gun he wore at his hip. Stay here. Sam, stay here. Keep the girls inside. He was out the door before Clara could argue. She moved to the window, heart pounding, and watched him stride toward the rider approaching through the darkness. The rider pulled up short, hands raised where Sam could see them. Evening, Hartwell. Clara's blood went cold. She knew that voice. Deputy Jennings, Sam said flatly. Long way from town this time of night. Marshall sent me. Got a message for you. I can imagine what kind of message Thornton sends. He wants the woman back. Jennings shifted in his saddle. Says you took her under false pretenses. Says she's a dangerous criminal who needs to be in custody. She's under my custody now. Thornton made that deal himself in front of the whole town. Marshall says he made a mistake. Says he shouldn't have let a murderer go free even to a respectable man like yourself. Clara watched Sam's hand tighten on his gun. Tell Thornton she stays here. She's not going anywhere. He won't like that answer. Don't much care what he likes. Jennings was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward in his saddle. Look, Hartwell, I'm just the messenger. But between you and me, the Marshalls got it bad for this woman. Been talking about her for months. I don't know what happened between them, but whatever it was, he ain't gonna let it go. Then he'll have to come through me. That's what I was afraid you'd say. Jennings wheeled his horse around. I'll tell him. Don't expect he'll take it well. Jennings. Sam's voice stopped the deputy mid-turn. You're a decent man, better than Thornton deserves. If things get ugly, you don't have to stand with him. The deputy was silent for a long moment. Then, good night, Hartwell. Watch your back. He rode off into the darkness. Sam stood motionless until the hoofbeats faded. Then he walked back to the house, his face grim. Clara met him at the door. He's not going to stop, is he? No, he's not. I should go. Take one of your horses and just go. If I'm not here. If you're not here, he'll hunt you down. At least here you've got walls and guns and someone willing to use them. I can't ask you to fight my battles. Sam stopped in front of her close enough that she could see the firelight reflected in his eyes. You didn't ask. I volunteered. He touched her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Told you I'd show you some people are exactly what they seem. This is me showing you. Clara's throat tightened. Why, you barely know me. Know enough. His voice dropped. Know my daughters smile more in 3 days than they have in 2 years. Know this house feels alive again. Know that every time I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for. Sam! You don't have to say anything. Don't have to feel anything. I'm just telling you how it is. He dropped his hand. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. He walked past her toward the stairs, and Clara stood frozen in the parlor, her heart racing. 3 days ago, she'd been tied to a post waiting to die. Now she was standing in a warm house protected by a man who looked at her like she mattered, loved by 2 little girls who'd somehow remembered her across the gulf of years and trauma. It felt like a dream. A beautiful, impossible dream. And Clara was terrified to wake up. 3 weeks passed, and Clara began to believe in miracles. Not the kind from church stories, burning bushes and parting seas. The quiet kind. The kind where a woman who'd forgotten how to laugh found herself giggling at Lily's terrible jokes. Where nightmares that had haunted her for years started fading like old bruises. The kind where she caught Sam watching her across the dinner table with something soft in his eyes and didn't feel afraid. You're humming, Grace observed one morning, looking up from her porridge with wide eyes. Clara stopped her hands, frozen over the bread dough she was kneading. Was I? The star song. You were humming the star song. I didn't realize. Mama used to hum when she was happy, Lily said matter-of-factly. Does that mean you're happy now? Clara looked at these 2 golden-haired girls who'd somehow become the center of her world. At the kitchen full of morning light, at the life she'd stumbled into through snow and tragedy, and the stubborn faith of children. Yes, she said softly. I think I am. Sam appeared in the doorway, stamping snow off his boots. Storm's coming. Big one by the look of the sky. I'm gonna bring the horses in closer, make sure we're stocked up on firewood. Need help? You're doing fine right there. His eyes lingered on her flour-dusted hands, on the color in her cheeks. Making bread looks good on you. Clara felt heat rise to her face. Go tend your horses, Samuel Hartwell." He grinned, actually grinned, transforming his stern face into something almost boyish, and ducked back outside. "Papa likes you," Grace announced. "He's just being kind." "No, he likes you, likes you." Lily made a face. "He looks at you all moony, like Mr. Henderson looks at Mrs. Henderson at church. The Hendersons have been married 30 years. So," Lily shrugged, "Papa could marry you. Then you'd be our real mama, and you'd never have to leave." Clara's hands stilled on the dough. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I'm broken," Clara wanted to say. "Because I don't know how to trust anymore. Because every time I think about forever, I remember Edward's fists, and Thornton's smile, and all the ways love can turn into a cage." "Because your papa deserves someone who isn't afraid of her own shadow," Clara said instead. "Someone who can give him a whole heart, not the broken pieces of one." Grace slid off her chair and walked over to Clara, her small face serious. "Our hearts were broken too, after Mama died, but you're fixing them. Maybe Papa can fix yours." Clara's eyes stung. She pulled Grace into a flowery hug, breathing in the scent of childhood and innocence. "When did you get so wise?" "Lily says I was born that way." "Lily's right." The storm hit that afternoon, howling down from the mountains, with a fury that made Clara's bones ache. Wind screamed around the corners of the house. Snow piled against the windows so fast they couldn't see out. "Just like that night," Lily whispered, pressing close to Clara on the sofa. "Just like when we found Mama. You're safe now." Clara wrapped an arm around her. "You're warm and dry, and nothing bad is going to happen." But even as she said it, she noticed Grace hadn't come down from her afternoon nap. Usually Lily couldn't keep her sister in bed past 3 o'clock. "Grace!" Clara called up the stairs. "Sweetheart, time to wake up." No answer. Clara's stomach tightened. She climbed the stairs, Lily on her heels, and pushed open the door to the girls' room. Grace lay in bed, her face flushed red, her body shaking despite the pile of blankets. "Grace!" Clara pressed her hand to the child's forehead and pulled back with a gasp. "She's burning up." "Mama!" Grace's eyes opened glassy and unfocused. "Mama, I'm cold. Why is it so cold?" Clara's blood turned to ice. "Lily, go get your father. Now!" Lily flew down the stairs. Clara could hear her screaming across the yard, her voice nearly lost in the wind. "It's okay, sweetheart." Clara gathered Grace into her arms, rocking her gently. "It's Clara. I'm right here." "The snow," Grace mumbled. "There's so much snow. Mama won't wake up. Why won't Mama wake up?" She was delirious. The fever had pulled her back to that night 2 years ago, trapped her in the memory. "Your Mama's in heaven, remember? She's watching over you. She's always watching over you." The lady came. Grace's eyes rolled. "The lady with the green blanket. She sang to us. She kept us warm." Clara felt tears sliding down her face. "That's right, baby. And I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere." Sam burst through the door, snow crusting his hair and shoulders, panic written across his face. "What happened?" "Fever. High one. It came on fast." He touched Grace's forehead and swore under his breath. "We need to bring it down. Cold water rags. I'll get them." They worked through the evening, bathing Grace's burning skin, forcing sips of water between her cracked lips. The storm raged outside, cutting them off from any hope of fetching a doctor. "Mama!" Grace kept crying. "Mama, please wake up. Please don't sleep anymore." And then Lily started swaying. Clara saw at first the way the little girl grabbed the bedpost, her face going pale. "Sam!" He turned just in time to catch his daughter as she collapsed. "No!" His voice cracked. "No, not both of them. Get her on the bed. We need more water, more rags." "Clara, I can't." "You can." She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "You can do this, Sam. We can do this. They survived a blizzard. They survived losing their mother. They're going to survive this." Something in her voice steadied him. He nodded, jaw tightening, and lifted Lily onto the bed beside her sister. The night became a blur of cool cloths and desperate prayers. Both girls burned with fever, tossing and mumbling, lost in nightmares that Clara couldn't pull them out of. "The blanket," Lily whispered. "She gave us her blanket. She was shaking so bad." "Cold," Grace moaned. "She's so cold. She's not wearing the blanket anymore." "She gave it to us." Lily continued, her voice rising. "She gave it to us, and now she's going to sleep like Mama and never wake up." Clara's hands froze on the cloth she was wringing. The girls weren't just remembering. They were remembering details Clara herself had lost. "She lay down next to us," Grace cried. "She wrapped her arms around us, but she was shaking and shaking." "Help is coming," Lily mumbled. "That's what she said. Help is coming. Just hold on." But she stopped talking. Grace's eyes flew open, lucid, for one terrible moment. She stopped talking, and she was so still, and we tried to keep her warm, but we couldn't. And then the men came, and she was gone. The memories hit Clara like a physical blow. The cold, the unbearable cold. Giving up her blanket, then her coat, then finally her own body heat. Lying in the snow with two small children pressed against her, singing, until her voice gave out, feeling. Her own heart slow, and her vision narrow to a single point of light. The certainty that she was going to die, and the strange peace that came with knowing these children would live. "Oh God," Clara pressed her hand to her mouth. I remember all of it." "Clara." Sam's voice came from far away. "I was dying." The words tumbled out. "I was freezing to death, and I knew it, and I didn't care because they were going to survive. I sang to them until I couldn't sing anymore. I promised help was coming even though I wasn't sure. And then I just let go. You saved them. I almost died saving them." Clara looked at the two small girls on the bed, at their fever-flushed faces, at the lives she'd traded her own for 2 years ago. And they remember. They remember every moment of it. That's why they dream about the snow. They're not just dreaming about their mother. They're dreaming about watching me die. Sam crossed to her in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. "You didn't die. You're here. You came back." "I don't know how." Clara was shaking now, 2 years of suppressed memory flooding through her. "I don't know how I survived. I should have frozen. I should have. But you didn't. Something kept you alive. Something brought you back." Sam pulled away enough to look into her eyes. "Don't you see? You were supposed to be here. Right here, right now, with them. With me." "Papa." Lily's weak voice interrupted them. They both turned. Lily's eyes were open, clearer than they'd been in hours, fixed on Clara's face. "You remember now, don't you? You remember the snow." Clara knelt beside the bed, taking Lily's small hand. "I remember, sweetheart. I remember all of it. We prayed you'd come back." Tears leaked from Lily's fever-bright eyes. "Every night for 2 years, we prayed, and then we saw you in the square and we knew God answered our prayers." "Lily, don't leave us again." The little girl's grip tightened. "Please, promise you won't leave us again." Clara looked at Sam, at the question in his eyes, at the hope he was trying so hard not to show. Then she looked back at these 2 children who'd been carrying the memory of her sacrifice for 2 years, who'd prayed for her return, who'd recognized her across a crowded square and fought to save her the way she'd once fought to save them. "I promise," Clara whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." The fevers broke near dawn. Clara was dozing in the chair between the beds when she felt a small hand touch her face. She opened her eyes to find Grace watching her, cool-skinned and clear-eyed. "Hi," Grace whispered. "Hi yourself." Clara's voice cracked. "How do you feel?" "Tired, thirsty." Grace glanced at her sleeping sister, then back at Clara. "I had dreams, bad ones, but you were there. You sang the star song and everything got better." That's what the star song does. It makes everything better. Will you teach it to me? The whole thing so I can sing it when I'm scared? Clara felt tears threatening again. Of course, sweetheart. I'll teach you everything I know. Sam appeared in the doorway, exhausted and unshaven, but smiling. The storm's passed. Sun's coming up. Papa. Grace tried to sit up. Lily got sick too. Is she okay? She's fine. Both of you are fine. Sam crossed to the bed and kissed his daughter's forehead. Gave us quite a scare. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't do it again. Grace giggled weakly. I'll try. Lily stirred beside her, blinking awake. What happened? Why does my head hurt? You had a fever, baby. Sam smoothed her hair back. But it broke. You're going to be okay. The twins reached for each other automatically, small hands clasping the bond between them, visible and unbreakable. I dreamed about the snow, Lily said quietly. But this time the lady didn't disappear. She stayed. Both girls looked at Clara. She stayed, Grace echoed. Clara couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. Sam's hand found her shoulder, squeezing gently. Come on, girls need rest, and so do you. He led Clara downstairs, settled her on the sofa with a blanket, and pressed a cup of coffee into her hands. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For being here, for staying, for singing them through the worst of it. He sat down beside her. I couldn't have done it alone. Yes, you could. Maybe, but I didn't have to. That's the point. Sam turned to face her. Clara, about what happened up there. What you remembered. Sam, let me finish. He took her hands, his rough palms warm against her cold fingers. You gave up everything to save two children you'd never met. You lay down in the snow ready to die so they could live. That's not something a bad person does. That's not something a murderer does. Whatever happened with your husband, whatever Thornton claims, I know who you really are. I saw it 2 years ago when you saved my daughters, and I see it now. You weren't there 2 years ago. Wasn't I? Sam's eyes held hers. I was searching for them that night, part of the search party. We found them just after dawn, buried in snow but warm, wrapped in a green blanket that didn't belong to anyone, singing a song none of us recognized. Clara's breath caught. The tracker found footprints leading away from them, stumbling confused, heading toward the road. He followed them for half a mile before the snow covered them completely. We never found who they belonged to. Sam's voice dropped. Until now. You were there, Clara whispered. I carried my daughters home that morning, carried them past a woman's body in an overturned wagon, their mother, though I didn't know it then. Rebecca was already back at the ranch getting ready to welcome them home. His jaw tightened. We didn't know she'd gone out, didn't know she'd taken the girls, didn't know anything until the storm cleared and she wasn't there. Sam, the point is, I was there, on the edge of it, and I've spent 2 years wondering who saved my girls, who was good enough, brave enough to freeze to death for 2 strangers. He cupped her face in his hands. Now I know, and I'm not letting you go. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. I'm broken, Clara said. I'm scared and damaged, and I don't know if I'll ever be whole again. Then we'll be broken together. Sam, I'm not asking for anything, not now. Just stay. Stay and let us love you. Let us show you what family can be when it's not twisted and wrong. His thumb brushed her cheek. One day at a time, one moment at a time, however long it takes. Clara leaned into his touch, feeling something warm bloom in her chest. Something she'd thought she'd lost forever. Hope. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Sam smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Okay. They sat together as the sun rose higher, as the storm clouds retreated, and the world turned white and gold and new. Upstairs, the twins slept peacefully for the first time in days. Outside, the horses nickered softly in their stalls. For one perfect moment, everything was still. Then hoofbeats. Multiple horses approaching fast. Sam was on his feet before Clara could react. He crossed to the window, and she watched his face go hard. "What is it?" "Riders. 6 of them." His hand dropped to his gun. "Thornton's in front." Clara's blood went cold. "Sam, stay here. Keep the girls quiet. No matter what happens, stay in this house." "I'm not going to hide while you—" "You're not hiding. You're protecting them." He gestured toward the stairs. "If something happens to me, get them out through the back. There's a horse saddled in the barn. Always keep one ready. Take them to my sister in Denver. She'll know what to do." "Sam, please." He kissed her, hard and fast and desperate. "One day at a time, remember." He pulled back, his gray eyes blazing. "Just make sure we get that day." Then he was gone out the door and into the cold morning to face whatever was coming. Clara ran to the window and watched him walk toward the approaching riders. 6 men, 6 guns, and Sam, standing alone, nothing but his own weapon and his stubborn courage between them and the house. "Clara!" She spun. Grace and Lily stood at the bottom of the stairs, pale and trembling, clutching each other's hands. "The bad man's back," Lily whispered. "I heard the horses." Clara gathered them close. "Listen to me. We're going to stay very quiet. Your papa is handling it." "What if he can't?" Grace's voice shook. "What if the bad man hurts him?" Clara looked out the window at Sam's lone figure facing down 6 riders, at the man who'd cut her down from a post and given her a home, who'd held her while she cried and promised to show her that kindness still existed. "Then we run," Clara said quietly, "and we don't look back." Outside, Thornton pulled his horse to a stop 10 feet from Sam. "Hartwell, beautiful morning, isn't it? What do you want, Thornton?" "Same thing I wanted a week ago. The woman." The marshal smiled that cold smile. "I've given you time to come to your senses. Time to realize what you're harboring under your roof. Now I'm here to collect what's mine." "She's not yours." "No, I saved her life, Hartwell. Pulled her off her husband's body before she could do any more damage. That makes her my responsibility." Funny kind of responsibility, the kind that involves beating her senseless and locking her in a cell. Thornton's smile flickered. "She's told you stories. I'm not surprised. Woman like that, she's good at telling stories. Probably told you she's innocent. Told you I'm the villain. Told you anything that might turn you against me." "She told me the truth." "And how would you know the truth from lies?" Thornton leaned forward in his saddle. "You've known her 3 weeks. I've known her 6 months. Who do you think understands what she really is?" "I think I understand exactly what you are." The marshal's expression hardened. "Last chance, Hartwell. Give her up. Let me take her back to face justice, and I'll forget this little act of rebellion." "And if I don't—" Thornton's hand moved toward his gun. "Then I'll have to remove you as an obstacle. For the safety of the community, you understand." Sam's voice carried clear and cold across the snow. "You reach for that weapon, Thornton, you better pray you're faster than me. I've got 6 men. And I've got 2 daughters in that house who just watched their father face down a corrupt marshal and his hired guns." Sam smiled grimly. "What kind of lesson do you think I want to teach them? That a man backs down when the odds are against him, or that a man stands up for what's right no matter the cost?" Thornton's jaw tightened. "You're a fool." "Maybe, but I'm a fool with a clear conscience." For a long moment, nobody moved. Clara watched from the window, barely breathing, her arms tight around the twins. Then one of the riders shifted. A young man, barely out of boyhood, with a deputy's star on his chest. "Marshal," he said quietly, "this ain't right." Shut up, Jennings. No, sir. I've followed you for 2 years, done things I ain't proud of, but I ain't gonna shoot a man in front of his children for standing up to you. Jennings pulled his horse back. I'm done. You're done when I say you're done. Reckon I'm saying it myself. The young deputy turned his horse toward Sam. Hartwell, I apologize for my part in this. If you need a witness to the marshal's conduct, I'll testify. Another rider pulled back, then another. Thornton's face went purple with rage. You cowards! You spineless, worthless— It's over, Thornton. Sam's voice was quiet. Half your men just quit. The others are looking at them wondering if they should too. You gonna start a war you can't win. The marshal sat frozen fury and calculation warring on his face. Finally, he wheeled his horse around. This isn't over, Hartwell. Not by a long shot. That woman is mine and I'll see her hang if it's the last thing I do. Then it'll be the last thing you do. Thornton spurred his horse and rode hard toward town, the 3 remaining loyal deputies struggling to keep up. Jennings lingered, his young face troubled. He won't stop, he told Sam. You know that, right? He's obsessed. Been talking about that woman for months, planning ways to get her back. Then we'll be ready. You should get help. A lawyer, maybe. Someone who can build a case against him before he builds one against you. You know any lawyers willing to go up against the territorial marshal? Jennings hesitated. There's a man in Denver, reporter for the Chronicle. Been investigating corruption in the territories. Word is he's looking into Thornton specifically. He glanced toward the house. Might be worth reaching out. What's his name? Sullivan. Declan Sullivan. Clara's knees buckled. She grabbed the windowsill to keep from falling. Clara. Grace tugged at her dress. Clara, what's wrong? Declan. Her brother. Here. Investigating Thornton. Oh, God. Oh, God. The door opened, and Sam walked in, alive and whole, and searching for her with worried eyes. Clara. What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. The reporter. Clara gasped. Declan Sullivan. He's my brother. Sam stared at Clara like she'd spoken in tongues. Your brother. Declan Sullivan. The reporter. Clara's voice shook. He's my brother. We haven't spoken in 5 years. The one you fought with before you married Brennan? He tried to warn me about Edward, told me he saw something wrong underneath. I didn't listen. Clara pressed her hand to her chest. I told him if he couldn't be happy for me, I didn't want him around. And he left. And he left. And I've spent 5 years thinking he forgot about me, forgot I existed. Clara laughed high and brittle. But he's been investigating Thornton, looking for evidence. He never stopped caring. He just found another way to help. Sam crossed to her and gripped her shoulders. Clara, this is good news. This is the best news. You don't understand. If Declan's been investigating Thornton, if he's got evidence, then we use it. We reach out. We tell him where you are. And what if Thornton finds out? What if he goes after Declan? Then we warn him. We work together. Sam's eyes burned into hers. Clara, you've been fighting alone for years. You don't have to anymore. Let your brother help. The twins watched from the stairs, their pale faces still showing traces of fever, but their eyes sharp and alert. The reporter man is your brother, Lily asked. Like a real brother. A real brother. We should meet him. Grace descended the stairs carefully. If he's family, we should meet him. Sweetheart, it's complicated. No, it's not. Lily followed her sister. Family means you don't give up on each other. That's what Mama always said. Even when you fight. Even when you're mad. Family sticks together. Clara looked at these 2 small girls who'd survived losing their mother, who'd carried the memory of a stranger's sacrifice for 2 years, who'd somehow taught her more about love and loyalty than she'd learned in a lifetime. You're right, she said softly. You're absolutely right. Sam sent word to Denver that afternoon. A rider he trusted carrying a letter Clara had agonized over for an hour. The words kept coming out wrong, too formal, too apologetic, not apologetic enough. Finally, Sam had taken the pen from her trembling hand. Just tell him where you are. Tell him you need him. The rest can wait until he gets here. The waiting was torture. 3 days passed. The twins recovered fully, bouncing back with the resilience of children. Clara cooked and cleaned and helped with the horses, trying to keep her mind occupied, trying not to think about Declan reading her letter, or throwing it away unread, or already being dead because Thornton had gotten to him first. On the 4th day, a wagon appeared on the road to the ranch. Someone's coming. Sam reached for his rifle. Is it the bad man? Grace pressed against Clara's side. I don't. Clara squinted at the approaching figure, at the dark hair going gray at the temples, at the familiar set of shoulders she'd known since childhood. Declan. The name came out broken. She was running before she knew she'd moved. Down the porch steps, across the frozen ground, her skirts tangling around her legs. The wagon stopped, and a man jumped down, and then Clara was in her brother's arms, sobbing against his shoulder like she was 12 years old again. Clara. Declan's voice cracked. Good God, Clara! I thought you were dead. When I heard about Edward, when I couldn't find you. I'm sorry. Clara couldn't stop saying it. I'm so sorry. You were right about him. You were right about everything. I should have listened. Shh. Declan pulled back his hands, framing her face. His eyes, the same green-gray as hers, were wet with tears. None of that matters now. You're alive. You're here. I said such terrible things. And I left when you needed me most. We both made mistakes. Declan brushed her tears away with his thumbs. But I never stopped looking for you, never stopped caring. The moment I heard your name connected to Thornton, I started digging. Jennings said you've been investigating him. For 6 months. The man's dirty, Clara. Dirty in ways that go beyond what he did to you. Declan's jaw tightened. He's been running a protection racket across 3 territories, framing people who won't pay, taking women who catch his eye and making them disappear. Making them disappear. You're not the first. There have been others, at least 3 that I can confirm. Declan's voice dropped. You're the first one who survived long enough to escape. Clara felt cold spread through her chest. What happened to them? 2 are in unmarked graves outside Silver Creek. The 3rd... Declan hesitated. The 3rd is in an asylum in Kansas City. Thornton had her committed. Claimed she'd gone mad with guilt after killing her husband. Just like me. Exactly like you. Same story. Same accusations. Same evidence that doesn't hold up if you look at it closely. Sam had approached quietly, the twins flanking him. You got proof of all this? Declan turned, assessing Sam with sharp eyes. You must be Hartwell, the man who pulled my sister off that post. And you must be the brother who let her marry a man who beat her half to death. Sam? Clara stepped between them, but Declan just nodded slowly. Fair point. I carry that every day, but I'm here now, and I've got something that might help. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather satchel. Inside, Clara could see papers, dozens of them, and something that looked like a small wooden box. What is that? Grace asked, curiosity overwhelming her fear. Evidence. Declan knelt down to the little girl's level. You must be one of the twins my sister wrote about. Grace, or Lily. Grace, she's Lily. Grace pointed at her sister. Are you really Clara's brother? I am. She thought you forgot about her. Declan's face twisted. Never. Not for 1 second. Good. Grace nodded seriously. Because family doesn't forget, even when they're far away. No. Declan agreed softly. They don't. Inside the house, Declan spread his evidence across the kitchen table. Witness statements, financial records, newspaper clippings, and at the center of it all, the wooden box. What is that? Clara asked. A phonograph cylinder. Thomas Edison's invention. Declan opened the box to reveal a small wax cylinder cradled in velvet. Edward made a recording 3 days before he died. The air left Clara's lungs. What? I found it hidden in your house. Thornton's men missed it when they searched the place. Declan's voice was gentle. Edward was scared, Clara. He knew Thornton was coming for him. He made this recording as insurance. Play it. Sam's voice was rough. Whatever's on there, she needs to hear it. Declan pulled a small phonograph from his satchel and fitted the cylinder carefully onto the mechanism. The twins pressed close to Clara as he turned the crank. Static. Then, Edward's voice, thin and scratchy, but unmistakable, filled the kitchen. My name is Edward Brennan. I'm recording this on December 3rd, 1878. If you're hearing this, I'm probably dead, and you need to know the truth. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. She'd hated Edward, hated him for every bruise, every broken bone, every night of terror. But hearing his voice again, hearing the fear in it, made her throat close. Marshal Wade Thornton has been blackmailing me for 2 years. He knows things about my business, things that could send me to prison. He's been bleeding me dry, but that's not the worst of it. Edward's voice cracked on the recording. He wants my wife. He's been watching Clara since we came to Silver Creek, following her, making comments when he thinks I can't hear. Last week he told me flat out, either I hand her over or he'll kill me and take her anyway. Clara felt Sam's arm wrap around her shoulders. I told him no. Told him I'd die before I let him touch her. And he smiled God that smile and said that could be arranged. Silence. Then Edward spoke again, quieter. I know I haven't been a good husband. I know I've hurt Clara. The drinking, the anger, I'm not making excuses. But I never wanted this for her. I never wanted her handed over to a monster worse than me. Tears streamed down Clara's face. If I'm dead, it's because Thornton killed me. Clara didn't do it. She couldn't. For all my faults, she stuck by me when anyone else would have run. She tried to help me, tried to make me stop drinking, tried to save our marriage. Edward's voice broke completely. Don't let him hurt her, please. Whatever happens to me, don't let him hurt my Clara. She deserves better than both of us. The recording ended with a click. Nobody spoke. Clara stood, frozen, tears streaming down her face, processing what she'd just heard. Edward had known. He'd known Thornton was coming for him. He'd known she would be blamed, and he'd tried in his own broken, inadequate way to protect her. I hated him, she whispered. For so long, I hated him so much. You had every right to. Declan's voice was gentle. But he didn't deserve to die. Not like that. Not murdered by a man who wanted his wife like property. No, he didn't. Clara turned to Sam, her eyes searching his face. Does this change things? Knowing what Edward was, what he did to me, does it change how I feel about you? Sam cupped her face in his hands. No, you survived him. You survived Thornton. You're the strongest person I've ever met. Nothing on that recording changes that. But I stayed. For 4 years I stayed with a man who hurt me. Because you didn't know how to leave. Because the world doesn't make it easy for women to escape. Because you were young and alone and scared. Sam's thumbs brushed her tears away. None of that is your fault. None of it. Papa's right. Lily tugged at Clara's skirt. You're brave. The bravest person ever. Even braver than Mama, Grace asked. Different brave. Lily considered this seriously. Mama was brave about dying. Clara's brave about living. Clara dropped to her knees and pulled both girls into her arms, crying harder now, but not from grief, from relief, from the overwhelming sensation of being seen, being believed, being loved despite everything. Declan cleared his throat. We need to move fast. Thornton knows I've been investigating him. He's got men watching the roads in and out of Denver. If he finds out I'm here, then we take the fight to him. Sam straightened. Before he can plan, before he can prepare. How? Town meeting. Tonight. Sam's jaw set. Same way he tried to condemn Clara. We use his own methods against him. He'll never agree to that, too. He won't have a choice. The whole town saw what happened in that square. They've been whispering about it for weeks. All we have to do is give them a reason to listen. Clara stood slowly. You want me to stand up in front of everyone? The same people who called me a murderer, who threw dirt at me, who watched Thornton tie me to a post and did nothing. I want you to tell them the truth. All of it, including the parts that hurt. And if they don't believe me, then we play the recording. Sam's eyes met hers, and let Edward speak for himself. The ride into Silver Creek felt like riding to her own execution. Clara sat between Sam and Declan on the wagon seat, the twins bundled in blankets behind them. The winter sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of orange and red. By the time they reached town, darkness had fallen completely. Word traveled fast in Silver Creek. By the time they pulled up outside the town hall, a crowd had already gathered. Clara saw faces she recognized. The baker's wife, the blacksmith, old Martin, from the feed store, all of them watching with curiosity and suspicion. Hartwell. The shout came from inside the hall. What's the meaning of this? Thornton emerged through the doors, his deputies flanking him. But Clara noticed something different. Fewer men than before, and Jennings stood apart from the others, his young face troubled. Town meeting marshal. Sam jumped down from the wagon and helped Clara to the ground. You called one 3 weeks ago to condemn this woman. Seems only fair she gets a chance to respond. The matter's been settled. She's your responsibility now. The matter's not settled. You accused her of murder without a trial, without evidence, without letting her speak in her own defense. Sam's voice carried across the square. These people deserve to hear the truth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Clara felt their eyes on her, judging, assessing, waiting to see what she'd do. The truth is, she killed her husband. Thornton's voice dripped contempt. Beat his head in while he slept. I found her standing over the body with blood on her hands. Then why didn't you arrest her that night? Declan stepped forward, and Clara saw Thornton's face go pale. Why did you wait 2 days? Why did you visit her house 3 times before you finally took her in? Who the hell are you? Declan Sullivan, Denver Chronicle. Declan's voice was calm, measured deadly. I've been investigating you for 6 months, Marshal. Would you like to hear what I found? The crowd pressed closer. Clara could feel the shift in the air, curiosity overcoming fear, the hunger for scandal outweighing loyalty to authority. This man has accused me of lies before. Thornton addressed the crowd directly. He's my sister's husband, her murdering brother. Of course he'd say anything to, I have witness statements. Declan cut him off. From 3 women who say you did to them exactly what you tried to do to Clara. 2 of them are dead now. The 3rd is in an asylum. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I have financial records showing you've been extorting money from businessmen across 3 territories, framing those who won't pay, destroying anyone who stands against you. This is outrageous. And I have this. Declan held up the wax cylinder. A recording made by Edward Brennan 3 days before he died. His own words, his own voice, telling exactly who killed him and why. Thornton's face went white, then red, then purple with rage. That's a fake, a fabrication. You can't possibly... Then you won't mind if we play it, right here, right now, in front of everyone. The crowd erupted. People shouted questions, demands, accusations. Clara saw the baker's wife push toward the front, her face fierce with sudden understanding. I knew it, she called out. I knew something wasn't right. The way you looked at her, Marshal. The way you were always hanging around her house before Edward died. She's lying. Play the recording, someone shouted. Let us hear it. Let the dead man speak. Declan set up the phonograph on the town hall steps. The crowd pressed so close, Clara could barely breathe. Sam kept one arm around her waist, the other hand resting on his gun. The cylinder began to turn. Edward's voice filled the square, thin and ghostly but unmistakable. Clara watched the crowd's faces change as they listened, shock, then horror, then fury. "He wants my wife. He's been watching Clara since we came to Silver Creek." I told him no. Told him I'd die before I let him touch her. If I'm dead, it's because Thornton killed me. Clara didn't do it. She couldn't. The recording ended. Silence fell over the square like a shroud. Then Helen the baker's wife stepped forward. Her voice shook with rage. "You murdered that man. You murdered him and blamed his wife. You let us call her a monster when you were the monster all along." "This is absurd," Thornton started. "I saw you." An old man pushed through the crowd. "The night Brennan died, I saw you riding away from their house. Thought nothing of it at the time. Thought you were just making rounds." "Me too," another voice. "Saw him through my window, moving fast like he was running from something. He came to my wife, a young farmer, his face pale. Last summer. Said he'd make trouble for us if she didn't do what he wanted. We left town for 3 months. I thought I was imagining things. I thought—" "You thought what he wanted you to think." Clara's voice cut through the noise. Somehow, she'd found the strength to speak. "That's what he does. He makes you doubt yourself. Makes you think you're crazy. Makes you feel alone even when you're surrounded by people." She stepped forward and the crowd parted before her. "I spent 4 years with a man who hurt me. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud that I stayed, that I made excuses, that I let him break me down piece by piece." Clara's voice grew stronger. "But I didn't kill him. I was ready to die that night, his hands around my throat, the life draining out of me, and then this man shot him in the back. Not to save me, to take me. Because he'd decided I was his property, and Edward was just an obstacle." She turned to face Thornton directly. "You told me I owed you. Said saving my life made us connected. And when I refused to be grateful the way you wanted, you destroyed me. My reputation, my freedom, my will to live." Clara felt tears streaming down her face, but she didn't stop. "You would have killed me eventually, the same way you killed those other women, the same way you would have killed anyone who stood in your way." Thornton's hand dropped to his gun. "I wouldn't." Sam's voice was cold as steel. "You draw that weapon, you won't live long enough to fire it. You can't threaten me. I'm the law here. You're not the law." Jennings stepped forward, his deputy badge catching the torchlight. "Not anymore." He unpinned the star from his chest and let it fall to the ground. "I'm done being part of this. Done looking the other way. Done watching you hurt people and calling it justice." One by one, Thornton's remaining deputies followed suit. Badges dropped into the dirt, until Thornton stood alone, surrounded by a town that had finally stopped being afraid. "This isn't over." Thornton's voice shook with fury. "I have friends, powerful friends. You think a recording and some witnesses will stop me? I'll destroy every single one of you." "No." Clara stepped closer to him, close enough to see the fear beneath his rage. "You won't. Because I'm not afraid of you anymore. And a man who can't make people afraid has nothing." Thornton stared at her for a long moment. Then his face twisted into something ugly, something desperate, and his hand flew toward his gun. The shot echoed across the square. But it wasn't Thornton's gun that fired. The marshal crumpled to the ground, clutching his shoulder, and Clara turned to see Jennings standing with his pistol raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "Couldn't let him hurt anyone else," the young man said quietly. "Been wanting to do that for a long time." The crowd surged forward. Men grabbed Thornton, bound his hands, dragged him toward the jail that had held Clara for 6 months. Women surrounded Clara, touching her hands, apologizing, crying. "We should have known," Helen sobbed. "We should have listened. We should have. You're listening now." Clara gripped the other woman's hands. "That's what matters." Sam found her in the chaos, pulled her against his chest, held her while she shook with relief and exhaustion, and the overwhelming sensation of finally being believed. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "It's finally over." "Is it?" Clara pulled back to look at him. "Thornton said he has friends, powerful people. What if they come for us?" "Then we'll face them together. You, me, the girl's your brother." Sam cupped her face. "Family. Family," Clara repeated. The word felt strange in her mouth. Strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Declan appeared at her elbow, his face soft in a way she hadn't seen since they were children. "I'm proud of you, little sister. Ma would have been proud too." "Would she? Are you kidding? You stood up in front of a whole town and told the truth even when you were terrified. That's courage. That's grace. That's everything she tried to teach us." Clara hugged her brother, feeling the last frozen pieces of her heart begin to thaw. The twins broke through the crowd and launched themselves at her, nearly knocking her off her feet. "You were amazing," Lily shouted. "You made the bad man fall down." "Jennings made him fall down," Clara corrected, laughing despite herself. "But you made him scared first. I saw his face. He was scared of you." Grace wrapped her arms around Clara's waist. "You're the bravest person in the whole world." "I don't know about that." "We do." Both girls spoke together, their voices certain. "We always knew." Clara looked at the small crowd still gathered around her. At Sam, steady and strong. At Declan, finally returned to her life. At these two golden-haired girls who'd somehow seen her worth when no one else could. 3 weeks ago, she'd been tied to a post, waiting to die. Now she was standing in the same square, surrounded by people who believed her, who saw her, who loved her. The stars came out overhead, bright and cold and beautiful. Clara tipped her head back and let them blur through her tears. "Home," she thought. "I'm finally home." The days after Thornton's arrest passed like a fever dream. Clara woke each morning expecting to find herself back in that cold cell, expecting the clang of iron bars and the marshal's footsteps on the stairs. Instead, she woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of the twins arguing about whose turn it was to collect eggs. "You're doing it again," Sam said one morning, catching her frozen at the window. "Doing what?" "Waiting for it to fall apart." Clara pressed her palm against the cold glass. "Old habits. We'll make new ones." Sam crossed to her and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. "Together." She leaned back against his chest, letting his warmth seep into her bones. 3 weeks since the town meeting. 3 weeks since she'd stood in that square and told her truth. 3 weeks of slowly learning that safety wasn't just a word. "The trial's set for spring," Declan announced, stomping snow off his boots as he came through the door. He'd been staying at the boarding house in town, but rode out to the ranch every day. "Spring?" Clara turned. "That's months away." "Territorial judge has a full docket. Besides, the prosecution needs time to build their case. Thornton's got lawyers coming from Denver, expensive ones. Will they get him off? Not a chance." Declan's jaw set. "I've got too much evidence, too many witnesses. And that recording." He shook his head. "A dead man's testimony is hard to argue with." Clara felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "What happens until then?" "We wait, we prepare, and we try to live our lives." Living. Such a simple word, such a foreign concept. The twins had no such difficulty. They threw themselves into life with the boundless energy of children who'd finally been released from fear. They chattered constantly about Clara, what she'd taught them, what songs she'd sung, how she braided their hair better than anyone. "Will you be our mama now?" Lily asked one afternoon with the blunt directness of a 5-year-old. Clara's hands stilled on the bread dough. "What? Our real mama's in heaven. But you're here, and you love us, and Papa loves you." Lily ticked off each point on her small fingers. "So you should be our mama." "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." "Why not?" Clara searched for words. How did you explain to a child that love wasn't always enough, that some people were too broken to be what others needed? Because your papa hasn't asked me, she finally said. Then I'll tell him to ask. Lily jumped off her chair. Lily, wait. But the little girl was already gone, thundering through the house, shouting for her father. Clara buried her face in her floury hands. Oh, God. Grace appeared at her elbow, quieter than her sister as always. She's not wrong, you know. Grace. Papa's happier than he's been since Mama died. He smiles now. He laughs. He stopped having the bad dreams. Grace's serious eyes met Clara's. That's because of you. Your papa was happy before I came. No, he wasn't. He was pretending. Grace climbed onto a chair so she could look Clara in the eye. We could tell, me and Lily. We always knew he was pretending. Clara felt her throat tighten. And now he's real again. Grace reached out and touched Clara's cheek. You made him real again, just like you made us real again after Mama died. Before Clara could respond, Sam appeared in the doorway with Lily hanging off his arm. I hear you've been making proposals on my behalf, he said to his younger daughter. Someone had to. You were taking forever. Forever? It's been 3 weeks. That's forever. Sam caught Clara's eye across the kitchen. Something passed between them, amusement, embarrassment, and underneath it all a question neither had been brave enough to ask. Girls, Sam said quietly, go check on the horses. But Papa, now. The twins exchanged looks, but obeyed, scampering out the back door with barely contained giggles. Silence fell over the kitchen. Clara became acutely aware of the flour on her hands, the mess of her hair, the vulnerability of this moment. They're not wrong, Sam said finally. About what? About me taking forever. He crossed to her, stopping just out of reach. I've been wanting to say something for weeks. Kept talking myself out of it. Telling myself it was too soon, you weren't ready. I didn't want to pressure you. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. Sam, let me finish. Please. He took a breath. I love you, Clara. Not because you saved my daughters, though I'll be grateful for that until the day I die. Not because you need protecting, though God knows I want to protect you from everything that's ever hurt you. His eyes held hers, gray and steady, and full of something that made her breath catch. I love you because when I'm with you, I feel like myself again. The man I was before Rebecca died. Before grief turned me into a ghost just going through the motions. Sam's voice roughened. You brought me back to life. Same way you brought them back to life in that blizzard. Same way you bring everything you touch back to life. Clara's eyes were burning. I'm broken, Sam. You know that. You know everything that's happened to me. Everything I've been through. I know. And I don't care. He stepped closer, close enough to touch. Broken isn't the same as destroyed. Broken means there's still something to fix. Still something worth saving. What if I can't be fixed? Then we'll be broken together. I already told you that. Sam reached out and took her floury hands in his. Clara, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm not asking you to forget what happened or pretend it didn't change you. I'm asking you to stay, to build something with me, to let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. And if I'm not ready, then I'll wait. A year, 5 years, however long it takes. His grip tightened on her hands. But I need you to know how I feel. I need you to know that whatever you decide, whatever you need, I'm not going anywhere. Clara stared at this man who'd cut her down from a post and given her a home. Who'd faced down a corrupt marshal and never once wavered. Who looked at her like she was precious even with flour in her hair and fear in her eyes. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. I don't know if I can be what you need, what the girls need. You already are. But what if... Clara. Sam cupped her face in his hands. Stop asking what if. Just answer one question. Do you love me? The word caught in her throat. She'd said it before to Edward in the early days when she'd still believed in fairy tales. The word had become poison in her mouth, twisted and corrupted, until it meant nothing but pain. But looking at Sam now, seeing the hope and fear and naked vulnerability in his eyes, she felt something crack open inside her. Something that had been locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. Yes, she breathed. God help me, yes. Sam kissed her. It wasn't like any kiss she'd known before. Not demanding or possessive or trying to take something from her. It was gentle, patient. A question rather than a demand. Clara melted into it, her flowery hands leaving prints on his shirt, her tears mingling with the kiss until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When they finally broke apart, both of them were shaking. Marry me, Sam said. Sam. Not today. Not even this month. Whenever you're ready. But say yes, so I know I have something to hope for. Clara thought about all the reasons to say no, the fear, the doubt, the voice in her head that said she didn't deserve happiness, didn't deserve a second chance at something she'd failed so badly the first time. Then she thought about Grace and Lily waiting outside with barely contained excitement. About Declan, who'd crossed mountains to find her. About the life she'd been building here, brick by brick, moment by moment. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Sam's whoop of joy echoed through the house. The back door flew open, and the twins tumbled in their faces, alight with triumph. We knew it, Lily crowed. We knew you'd say yes. You were listening. Clara wiped her eyes, laughing despite herself. Only a little bit. Grace wrapped her arms around Clara's waist. Does this mean you're really going to be our mama now? Clara looked at Sam at the joy and love written across his face. Then she knelt down and pulled both girls into her arms. I'm going to be your mama, she said softly. For real this time. Forever. The wedding happened 3 weeks later on a Sunday afternoon, when the sky was so blue, it hurt to look at. Clara wore a dress she'd sewn herself, simple ivory cotton with lace at the collar. The twins wore matching blue dresses and carried wildflowers they'd picked from the ranch's small greenhouse. Declan walked Clara down the makeshift aisle in Sam's parlor, his eyes wet but his voice steady. Ma would be proud, he whispered as he placed her hand in Sam's. Pa, too, if he were sober enough to remember what pride felt like. Declan, I'm just saying. He kissed her forehead. You deserve this. All of it. Don't let anyone tell you different. The circuit preacher spoke words Clara barely heard. She was too focused on Sam's face, on the way he looked at her, like she was a miracle he'd stumbled across and couldn't quite believe was real. I promise to choose you every day, Sam said when it came time for vows. To listen when you speak, to trust you to know your own mind, to never try to control or diminish you, to be your partner, not your keeper. Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She squeezed Sam's hands and spoke her own vows, the words she'd stayed up half the night writing. I promise to let myself be loved, to stop waiting for disaster and start trusting in good things. I promise to be honest with you even when it's hard, even when I'm scared. I promise to love your daughters like they're my own, because in every way that matters, they are. And I promise, Lily interrupted loudly, to never put frogs in Clara's bed again. Laughter rippled through the small gathering. Clara caught Sam's eye and saw him struggling not to grin. When did you put frogs in her bed? Last Tuesday. She screamed really loud. It was funny. Lily Hartwell, we are going to have a conversation about this later. Does this mean I can still put frogs in Grace's bed? No more frog discussions during the wedding. Declan interjected, his face red from suppressed laughter. Please. The preacher, clearly baffled by the whole situation, rushed through the final pronouncements. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Sam kissed her softly, reverently, while the twins cheered and Declan wiped his eyes. "Hello, Mrs. Hartwell," Sam murmured against her lips. "Hello, Mr. Hartwell." No regrets. Clara looked around the parlor at the small group of people who'd gathered to witness this moment. Helen from the bakery, who'd appointed herself chief apologizer for the whole town. Martin from the feed store, still sheepish about his role in the gossip mill. Jennings, the young deputy, who'd finally found his courage. And the twins, bouncing with excitement, already calling her Mama without hesitation. "Not one," Clara said. "Not ever." Spring came slowly to Silver Creek, but when it arrived, it brought changes no one could have predicted. Thornton's trial was the talk of 3 territories. Declan's reporting had exposed corruption that stretched far beyond one small town, implicating powerful men who'd bought the marshal's loyalty with gold and favors. Clara testified on the 3rd day. She walked into that courtroom expecting terror, expecting the old fear to rise up and choke her. Instead, she felt calm, steady, ready. "Mrs. Hartwell," the prosecutor began, "can you tell the court about your relationship with Wade Thornton?" Clara told them everything. The harassment, the threats, the night Edward died, the 6 months of captivity and abuse. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Thornton sat at the defense table, his face twisted with hatred, but he'd been stripped of his power. Just a man now. A small, vicious man who'd built his empire on fear. "The defendant claims you killed your husband," the defense attorney pressed. "That you're lying to save yourself." "I know what he claims." Clara's voice was steady. "I also know what's true. Edward was a violent man. He hurt me for years. But I didn't kill him. I was fighting to survive when Marshal Thornton shot him in the back. And why would the Marshal do such a thing? Because he wanted me. Because Edward wouldn't hand me over. Because in Wade Thornton's world, women are property to be taken, not people with the right to say no." Clara turned to look at the jury, 12 men who held Thornton's fate in their hands. "I spent 4 years being beaten by one man and 6 months being tormented by another. I know what monsters look like. I know how they work. They make you feel small. They make you feel worthless. They make you believe that no one will help you, that no one will believe you, that you deserve everything they do to you." Her voice rose, filling the courtroom. "But they're wrong. I know that now. I know my worth. I know my truth. And I know that man," she pointed at Thornton, "murdered Edward Brennan, framed me for his crime, and would have killed me too if I hadn't escaped." The guilty verdict came 3 hours later. Clara was standing outside the courthouse when they led Thornton away in chains. He caught her eye as he passed, and she saw the hatred there, the impotent rage of a man who'd finally met something he couldn't destroy. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I'll find a way out. I'll come for you." Clara stepped forward until she was close enough to see the fear underneath his bravado. "No," she said quietly. "You won't, because I'm not afraid of you anymore. And a man who can't make people afraid has nothing." She turned her back on him and walked to where her family was waiting. Sam wrapped his arm around her shoulders. The twins grabbed her hands. Declan stood nearby, pride radiating from every line of his body. "It's done," Sam said. "Really done." "Yes." Clara breathed in the spring air, sweet with promise. "It is." The months that followed were kind. Clara learned to tend the garden, to work with the horses, to help Sam with the endless tasks that kept a ranch running. She taught the twins to read better, to braid each other's hair, to sing the old songs her grandmother had taught her. Summer brought warmth and growth, and the first anniversary of the day, Sam had cut her down from that post. "1 year," Sam said that evening as they sat together on the porch. "Doesn't seem possible. Seems like a lifetime ago." "Does it get easier?" The remembering. Clara considered the question. The nightmares had faded, but not disappeared. Some days were harder than others. Some moments still caught her off guard. A raised voice, a slammed door, the smell of whiskey, and sent her spiraling back into fear. But those moments were fewer now. Shorter. Less consuming. It gets different, she said finally. The memories don't go away, but they lose their power. They become part of the story instead of the whole story. And what's the rest of the story? Clara looked out at the ranch, at the horses grazing peacefully, at the garden bursting with vegetables, at the rope swing Sam had hung for the twins from the old oak tree. This, she said simply, this is the rest of the story. Autumn brought a surprise none of them had expected. Clara had been feeling strange for weeks, tired in ways she couldn't explain, sick in the mornings, emotional at odd moments. You should see the doctor, Sam said one night, worry creasing his forehead. I don't need a doctor. Clara. I already know what's wrong with me. She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. Or rather, what's right. Sam's face went blank. Then, understanding dawned, followed by joy so pure it transformed his whole expression. Yes. We're going to, yes. Sam let out a whoop that rivaled the one he'd made when she'd accepted his proposal. He lifted her off her feet and spun her around, laughing, crying, pressing kisses all over her face. A baby, he kept saying. Our baby. Put me down before you make me dizzy. He set her down, but didn't let go his hands, cradling her face like she was made of glass. I love you, he said. Have I told you that today? Only about 17 times. 18 now. I love you. And I love this baby. And I love our girls. And I love this life. The twins took the news with characteristic enthusiasm. Lily immediately began making plans for how she would teach the baby to ride horses. Grace, more practical, asked if the baby would share her room. The baby will have its own room, Clara assured her. Eventually. But where will it sleep first? In our room. Babies need to be close to their mamas at first. Grace considered this. I remember being close to Mama. She used to sing to me when I couldn't sleep. Will you sing to the baby? Clara pulled Grace into her lap. Of course I will. The same songs I sing to you. The Star Song. Especially the Star Song. Winter came again, wrapping Silver Creek in white silence. Clara grew rounder, slower, more tired. Sam hovered constantly, driving her half mad with his protective fussing. I'm pregnant, not dying. I know. I just worry. You worry about everything. I worry about you. He kissed her forehead. Can't help it. You're my whole world. The baby came on a February night when the snow fell thick and fast outside the windows. Sam held Clara's hand through hours of labor, never leaving her side, his face gray with fear, but his voice steady and calm. You can do this, he kept saying. You're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong right now. You survived a blizzard. You survived Thornton. You can survive childbirth. Those aren't remotely the same thing. No, but you're still the same woman. The woman who never gives up. The woman who keeps fighting no matter what. The twins waited outside the door, forbidden from entering, but too anxious to go to bed. Clara could hear them whispering, arguing about whether it would be a boy or a girl, making bets on who the baby would look like. At dawn, she held her son for the first time. He was small and red and furious at being evicted from his comfortable home. But when Clara pressed him to her chest, when he heard her heartbeat and felt her warmth, he quieted. Hello, she whispered. Hello, little one. He's beautiful. Sam's voice was thick with tears. What should we call him? Clara looked at her brother, who'd been allowed in after the worst was over. At Sam, who'd given her everything she'd never dared to hope for. At the two small girls, now crowded in the doorway, their faces alight with wonder. Rowan, she said. After my brother. And Thomas. Sam's eyebrows rose. Thomas. Not after Edward. After what he said in the recording, what he tried to do at the end. Clara stroked her son's tiny cheek. He was wrong about a lot of things. But he was right about one thing. I deserved better than him. I deserved this. Rowan Thomas Hartwell. Sam tested the name. I like it. Rowan Thomas Hartwell. The twins repeated in unison. Our brother. Spring found Clara in the garden, Rowan strapped to her chest, the twins playing nearby. She was planting tomatoes when Sam appeared fresh from working with the horses. Letter came, he said, holding out an envelope. From Denver. Clara wiped her hands on her apron and took it. The return address made her heart skip the territorial governor's office. What does it say? Grace asked, abandoning her game to peer at the paper. Clara read silently, her eyes widening with each line. Clara. Sam's voice was worried. What is it? It's about Thornton. Clara looked up, disbelief written across her face. He's dead. Died in prison last week. Heart attack, they think. Silence fell over the garden. Is that bad? Lily asked uncertainly. No, sweetheart. Clara folded the letter carefully. It's not bad, it just means it's really over. Completely over. He can't hurt anyone ever again. Sam pulled her into his arms, mindful of the baby between them. How do you feel? Clara considered the question. She'd expected to feel triumph, or relief, or maybe nothing at all. Instead, she felt sad. Sad for the man Thornton might have been if something hadn't twisted him into a monster. Sad for his victims who never got the closure she'd been granted. Sad for the waste of it all, the destruction he'd caused, the lives he'd ruined, the fear he'd spread like poison. I feel free, she said finally. Really, truly free. Summer marked 2 years since that day in the square. Clara stood in the same spot where she'd been tied to a post, but everything was different now. The town had changed. Helen had organized a committee to help women in difficult situations. Martin had started a fund for families in need. Even the saloon had cleaned up its act, banning the kind of men who'd once been Thornton's allies. Hard to believe it's the same place, Declan said, standing beside her. He'd come for his nephew's baptism and stayed for a week. It's not the same place. Not really. Clara watched the twins run through the square, their laughter echoing off the buildings. Places change when the people in them change. And have you changed? Clara thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago. Beaten, broken, ready to die rather than face another moment of fear. Yes, she said, but not in the ways you might think. I'm still scared sometimes. Still wake up with nightmares. Still flinch at loud noises and raised voices. But I know how to live with it now. Know that fear doesn't have to control me. Know that being scared and being brave aren't opposites. They're the same thing sometimes. Declan put his arm around her shoulders. Ma would be proud. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Because you need to hear it. Because somewhere in heaven, our mother is looking down at you and smiling. Clara leaned into her brother's embrace, watching her daughters play, watching her husband approach with their son in his arms, watching this life she'd built from the ashes of everything she'd lost. I know, she said softly. I finally know. The years that followed brought challenges and joys in equal measure. Rowan grew from a baby to a toddler to a boy full of curiosity and mischief. The twins blossomed into young women, carrying forward the lessons their mothers, both of them, had taught. Clara never forgot the woman she'd been. She kept the memory close, a reminder of how far she'd come. And every year on the anniversary of her rescue, she and Sam would sit together on the porch and count their blessings. One evening when Rowan was 10 and the twins were 16, Clara found herself standing in that town square again. A plaque had been erected where the posts once stood, a memorial to the women Thornton had hurt, a promise that Silver Creek would never let such things happen again. Mom! Grace appeared at her elbow, grown tall and beautiful. What are you thinking about? Clara touched the plaque, tracing the names engraved there. I'm thinking about how strange life is, how the worst moments can lead to the best ones, how being broken can be the beginning of becoming whole. Do you regret any of it? The pain. Yes, of course. Clara turned to face her daughter. Her daughter, no blood between them, but a bond stronger than blood. But the path that brought me here, to your father, to you, and Lily, and Rowan, never. I'd walk through that fire again if it meant ending up in this life. Even the scary parts. Especially the scary parts. Because the scary parts taught me what I was made of. They taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. That love is worth fighting for. That family isn't about where you come from, it's about where you choose to belong. Grace hugged her tightly. I'm glad you chose us. Sweetheart. Clara held her daughter close. You chose me first. You and your sister in that town square. You looked at a woman everyone else had given up on and said, that's her. You saw something worth saving when nobody else could. We just knew, Grace said simply. We always knew. That night, Clara sat between her daughters at the dinner table, watching Sam try to convince Rowan that vegetables were not in fact poison. Watching Lily argue about something she'd read in the newspaper. Watching Grace roll her eyes at her siblings with theatrical exasperation. Ordinary moments. Precious moments. The kind of moments Clara had once believed she'd never have. Sam caught her eye across the table and smiled that same smile he'd given her the day she agreed to marry him, full of love and wonder and gratitude. What? He asked. Nothing. Clara smiled back. Everything. After dinner, when the children had scattered to their various activities, Sam found Clara on the porch wrapped in a blanket against the evening chill. You're doing that thing again, he said, settling beside her. What thing? Looking at everything like you're afraid it'll disappear. Clara laughed softly. Old habits. How long until they're gone completely? Maybe never. Maybe that's okay. She leaned against his shoulder. Maybe remembering how close I came to losing everything makes me appreciate it more. You didn't lose it. You fought for it. You earned it. We earned it. Together. Sam kissed the top of her head. Together. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, the same stars Clara had sung about on a frozen night years ago. The same stars her children would see, and their children after them. The story hadn't ended where it began, with a woman tied to a post waiting for justice that never came. It ended here on a porch in Wyoming territory, with a family built from broken pieces and healed by love. Clara Brennan had been called a murderer. She'd been beaten, imprisoned, and condemned. She'd stood in a frozen square with a rope around her wrists and nothing but rage to keep her standing. But two small girls had looked at her and seen the truth. A man had listened to his daughters and chosen to believe. And together, they'd built something Thornton could never destroy, something stronger than fear, deeper than pain, more powerful than all the cruelty the world could throw at them. They'd built a home. Clara closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of her family inside the house. Rowan arguing about bedtime, the twins laughing at something, Sam's steady heartbeat beside her. Home, she thought. After everything. After all of it. Finally, irrevocably, completely home.